Ex-girlfriend tried to ruin my new relationship by sending fake screenshots. The metadata analysis proved they were doctored. My world collapsed when my current girlfriend received those screenshots at 2 in the morning. She called me immediately, voice shaking with hurt and disbelief, asking if I had been cheating on her with my ex. The screenshots showed supposed text conversations between my ex and me, filled with intimate messages and plans to meet up behind my girlfriend's back. My heart sank as I realized someone was deliberately trying to destroy the best relationship I'd ever had. The timing couldn't have been worse, since we had just celebrated our 6-month anniversary the week before. Everything between us had been perfect, and I was already thinking about moving in together after her lease expired in the spring. We spent every weekend together, alternating between her apartment downtown and my place in the suburbs. Her friends had finally started warming up to me, and even her protective older brother had given me his approval after months of skeptical looks. I immediately denied everything, my voice cracking with desperation as I tried to explain that someone was setting me up. But looking at those screenshots from her perspective, I understood why she was devastated and angry. The messages looked incredibly convincing, complete with timestamps and even some inside jokes that only my ex would know. They showed conversations spanning several weeks, making it appear like I had been carrying on an emotional affair practically since our relationship began. My girlfriend hung up on me after I kept insisting the screenshots were fake, telling me she needed space to think. I spent the rest of that night pacing around my apartment, feeling sick to my stomach, and trying to figure out who would do something this cruel. The obvious suspect was my ex, but we had ended things on relatively decent terms almost a year ago. We barely spoke anymore except for the occasional happy birthday text, or when we ran into each other at mutual friends' parties. The next morning, I decided to do some detective work of my own, instead of just sitting around feeling sorry for myself. I started by going through my phone's message history with my ex, taking screenshots of our actual conversations from the past few months. The contrast was stark. Our real messages were brief, polite, and mostly about practical matters like returning each other's belongings or coordinating when we'd both be at the same social events. I noticed something interesting when I compared the fake screenshots to the real ones from my phone. The font looked slightly different, and the message bubbles seemed to have a different shade of blue than what appeared on my actual iPhone. This gave me hope that maybe I could prove these were fabricated, but I needed more concrete evidence than just visual differences that could be explained away. That's when I remembered my college roommate worked in digital forensics for a cybersecurity company downtown. We had stayed in touch over the years, grabbing beers every few months and texting about sports. I knew it was a long shot, but I decided to reach out and explain my situation. He was sympathetic and agreed to take a look at the screenshots, though he warned me that proving digital manipulation could be tricky depending on how sophisticated the fake was. I drove to his office that afternoon, my hands shaking as I handed over my girlfriend's phone so he could examine the screenshots she had received. He loaded them onto his computer and started running various analysis programs that I didn't understand. The technical jargon went over my head, but I could tell he was being thorough, checking everything from compression artifacts to color gradients. After about an hour of analysis, he leaned back in his chair with a satisfied expression. The metadata embedded in the screenshot files revealed they had been created using a photo editing application, rather than being genuine screenshots from a messaging app. Even more damning, the timestamps on the file creation showed they had been made just hours before being sent to my girlfriend, not weeks ago when the conversations supposedly took place. Armed with this evidence, I called my girlfriend and begged her to meet me for coffee so I could show her what I had discovered. She was reluctant at first, still hurt and suspicious, but eventually agreed to hear me out. I brought printouts of the forensic analysis along with side-by-side comparisons of the fake screenshots and real conversations from my phone. Seeing the technical proof seemed to crack her defensive walls, and I could see doubt creeping into her eyes as she studied the evidence. She started asking questions about who would do something like this and why they would target our relationship specifically. I shared my suspicions about my ex, though I admitted I didn't have concrete proof yet that she was the one behind the fake screenshots. My girlfriend's anger began shifting from me to whoever had orchestrated this elaborate deception. She was furious that someone had tried to manipulate her emotions and destroy our relationship with lies. We decided to confront my ex together, figuring that a united front might be more effective than me approaching her alone. The confrontation happened at a coffee shop near my ex's apartment, a place where we used to go on dates back when we were together. My ex arrived looking nervous and defensive, clearly not expecting to see my current girlfriend there with me. I laid out the evidence methodically, showing her the forensic analysis and explaining how we knew the screenshots were fabricated. At first, she tried to deny everything, claiming she had no idea what we were talking about. But as I presented more details about the metadata and technical evidence, her composure began to crumble. Her hands started shaking, and she kept avoiding eye contact, classic signs that she was lying. The final blow came when I mentioned that digital forensics could potentially trace the fake screenshots back to the device and software used to create them. That's when she finally broke down and admitted to everything, tears streaming down her face as she confessed to creating the fake screenshots. Her motivation was exactly what I had suspected. She was jealous of my new relationship and couldn't handle seeing me happy with someone else. She had been stalking my social media accounts, growing increasingly bitter every time she saw photos of my girlfriend and me together. The method she used was actually quite sophisticated, involving a combination of photo editing software and careful research of my texting habits. She had studied screenshots from our old conversations to mimic the font and layout, then created entirely fictional messages designed to sound like things I might actually say. The inside jokes and personal details came from her intimate knowledge of my personality and communication style from our year-long relationship. What shocked me most was learning that this wasn't her first attempt at sabotaging my new relationship. She had been planning this for weeks, carefully crafting the fake conversations to build a believable narrative of ongoing infidelity. She had even created multiple versions of the screenshots, testing different approaches to see which would be most convincing and hurtful. My current girlfriend was surprisingly calm during the confession, though I could see the anger simmering beneath her composed exterior. She asked pointed questions about the timeline and methods, gathering information like she was building a case. It turned out she was considering legal action, since creating fake evidence and harassment could potentially constitute crimes, depending on how the prosecutor chose to interpret the situation. The aftermath of this revelation was complicated and emotionally draining for everyone involved. My ex was devastated by the consequences of her actions, realizing that her jealousy had led her to commit what could be considered a form of fraud or defamation. She begged us not to pursue legal action, promising to delete all photos and information she had about my current relationship and to leave us alone completely. My girlfriend and I spent hours that night talking through everything that had happened, processing the violation of trust and the elaborate deception we had uncovered. She admitted that part of her had wanted to believe the screenshots were real, because it would have been easier to be angry at me than to face the reality that someone hated her enough to try destroying her happiness. The experience actually brought us closer together in some ways, creating a shared trauma that we had overcome as a team. We developed new communication strategies and promised to always approach each other first with concerns rather than letting outside influences drive wedges between us. The crisis had tested our relationship in ways we never expected, but surviving it made us more confident in our foundation. However, the paranoia and trust issues lingered for months afterward, affecting how we interacted with social media and mutual friends. Every time my girlfriend received an unexpected message or saw something online about me, she would tense up and wonder if it was another manipulation attempt. I found myself constantly reassuring her and being extra transparent about my communications and activities. We decided to take a break from social media for a while, deactivating our accounts and focusing on our real-world relationship without the constant pressure of online documentation. This digital detox was actually refreshing, forcing us to find new ways to spend time together and communicate without the distraction of phones and apps. The legal question remained unresolved for several weeks, as we debated whether to file charges against my ex. Part of me wanted justice for what she had put us through, while another part just wanted to move on and forget the whole nightmare. My girlfriend was more inclined toward legal action, arguing that my ex needed to face consequences for her actions to prevent her from targeting other people in the future. We eventually decided to file a police report, though we knew the chances of prosecution were slim given the relatively minor nature of the offense compared to other crimes. The detective who took our statement was sympathetic, but explained that digital harassment cases were often difficult to prove and prosecute, especially when no financial damage had occurred. The police report seemed to be enough to scare my ex into backing off completely, as we never heard from her again after that. She deleted all her social media accounts and apparently moved across the country within a few months, according to mutual friends who mentioned it in passing. Whether she left because of legal concerns or just wanted a fresh start, we were relieved to have her out of our lives permanently. My girlfriend and I used the experience as a catalyst to have deeper conversations about trust, communication, and how we wanted to handle conflicts in the future. We established ground rules about always approaching each other first with concerns and never letting outside voices influence our relationship without careful consideration and verification. The whole ordeal taught me valuable lessons about the importance of digital literacy and being skeptical of information received through technology. I started educating myself about common manipulation tactics and digital forensics, partly out of curiosity and partly to be better prepared if anything similar ever happened again. Looking back now, I'm grateful that we discovered the truth before the fake screenshots could do permanent damage to our relationship. The experience was traumatic and stressful, but it also proved that we could work together to overcome serious challenges and that our communication was strong enough to survive external attacks. My girlfriend often says that the whole situation made her realize how much she truly cared about me and our relationship, since she was willing to fight for the truth rather than just walking away when things got complicated. We both learned that love isn't just about the good times, but also about standing by each other when someone tries to tear you apart. The technical aspects of the case also opened my eyes to how easy it is to manipulate digital evidence, and how many people wouldn't think to question screenshots or other seemingly authentic digital documents. This experience made me much more cautious about believing information received through technology, always considering the source and motivation behind any surprising or inflammatory content. We're still together more than 2 years later, and the fake screenshot incident has become part of our origin story, a trial by fire that proved we were meant to be together. We occasionally joke about it when we see news stories about digital manipulation, or when friends share questionable screenshots from their own relationships. The whole experience also changed how I view my past relationships and the importance of making clean breaks when things end. I realized that maintaining friendly contact with exes, while seeming mature and civilized, can sometimes create opportunities for complications and misunderstandings that affect future relationships. Most importantly, I learned that trust is both fragile and resilient. It can be shaken by lies and manipulation, but it can also be strengthened by working through challenges together and choosing to believe in each other despite external pressures. The fake screenshots were designed to destroy our relationship, but instead they taught us how to protect and nurture what we had built together.